Hello, lovely people. Welcome back to Speak Your Truth. I'm your host, Nia, aka NCV, and today we are going to get into some real life shit, per usual. But today we're talking about how we are a product of our environment, but the real question is, does that truly define us? Are we truly defined by how our parents brought us up, by our childhood trauma, by all the bullshit that you dealt with? I don't know. But we're going to get into that. But before we do, go ahead and get you some tea or wine or weed, whatever you use to wind down. Let's get into it and tap back into it. And honestly, just a disclaimer real quick. I am sick. I haven't recorded my last 2 episodes. I know I said consistency, but a girl wasn't feeling good. She was not feeling good. I was not feeling okay. I'm extremely congested right now, so I sound a bit nasally. And I just went to urgent care yesterday because I literally couldn't breathe. Literally couldn't breathe. I literally thought excuse me. See what I'm saying? I literally thought I was gonna die. That's why I'm also iffy on recording this. I'm is this a good idea? I hope it is, and I hope I don't cough. We're gonna try our best. Today I got some green tea with lemon, and there is some agave sweetener in there, and I added in some cinnamon because somebody told me, a good friend of mine told me that some cinnamon and honey is really beneficial and helpful, but I'm vegan, so I can't have honey. So we're going to try this with cinnamon. We're going to try this with the cinnamon, and we're going to put in the agave, and we're going to hope for the best. I don't know if I added enough cinnamon. It tastes good, though. All right. So, yes, today we are talking about how we are the product of our environment. But the true question is, does that truly define us? And I mean, when I go into this, I start thinking about, well, are we truly a product of our environment? I personally believe that, yes, we are. There are certain things that we've inherited from our parents that, granted, we may love or we may not love these qualities. I don't love a lot of them. So I want to dive into this because I always think about this because it honestly stems from me thinking about childhood trauma and things like that, or just being triggered, and the question comes up a lot. And I'm somebody who, if you know me personally, then you know I do not like labels. I hate them. I hate being defined. I feel like when you're being defined by a label of any sort, it just puts you in a box, and it just makes me feel restricted, and I don't like that. But how did this question flow into my mind really is where I'm trying to start off with. And the way that it came to me is just that I found a lot of times, throughout my life, me and my brother would always have conversations about our upbringing and how we feel about it and where we are now. And I truly feel as though I've gone back and forth with this question because there are times more and more as I get older where I see certain qualities and characteristics of my parents within me that sometimes I really don't like. Sometimes it is beneficial, and then sometimes it's just I want to change it about me. So sometimes those qualities that's where I feel that whole thing where I was talking about in previous episodes where I'm trying to accept the new version of myself, where I keep finding these certain qualities that push me back to remembering how my parents are and then finding myself within them, and I'm just I don't like it, honestly, but I'm trying to turn those qualities into something better and something more beneficial to myself, something that I can alter to who I am, because honestly, I'm not my parents. And I can't stand when people try to literally sit here and be like, well, my parents raised me this way, so this is how I am. Or I was in this predicament because my parents chose to be, I don't fucking know, poor or whatever the case may be, so this is how I am. It's no, change your circumstances. So I wanted to get into that, and this question always comes up for me, and I'm always discussing it every fucking, I don't want to say every day, it feels like every day. I'm mostly discussing it with myself, but I truly believe, to answer that question of does us being a product of our environment define us? I truly believe it doesn't. I truly feel as though we have that opportunity, we have it within our grasp to alter the definition of who we are. Like, really make people know, like, this is who I am. Yes, I was raised in these conditions, but out came this beautiful flourishment of me, you know? If does that make sense? I think that makes sense. I'm so nasally, so I'm really sorry. I have to say it one more time because, like, I'm hearing myself right now and I'm just like, okay. But yeah, I don't feel like the way I was raised will ever define who I am today. It never will. It has certain effects on how I respond to things, but it's also up to me to change how I respond to those things. So I always tell people, like friends and stuff, like everything in our life is a choice. How we react to things and respond to things is a choice. Granted, like sometimes we just choose to lose self-control and we respond to things just off the top of your head. And I get that, but there's also that chance where it's like sometimes you just need to learn how to pause, cool it, think about how you want to change things and how you want to respond to things, and think about the person that you want to be before approaching every situation with an impulsive reaction. So this now leads me into more discussing like how I was raised and how it made me feel. I kind of went into it in the last episode where it was like, I was raised with tough love and all of that, but it's way more than that. I was raised with tough love, yes, but I was also silenced a lot, and I was also told that basically it wasn't okay to be sensitive. I hate that narrative. Point blank period. I hate that narrative. I am myself. I am me. I'm Nia. This is who I am. This is how I feel. And I'm not afraid to be that way. For so long, I'm going to use the terms as my father would say, brainwashed into feeling and thinking like I couldn't truly express myself the way I wanted to without it being a problem. For example, crying over nothing, or like what my mom would consider nothing, you were literally being a sensitive ass baby. That's what it was. So like, if my mom used to like to do this thing where she used to tell me and my brother, like, okay, well, if someone, like, I don't know, tries to pick on you or whatever, you don't let them do that, right? Like, my mom always taught me a good part of that, which is to always defend yourself, never be afraid to speak up for yourself. But she didn't express how to do those things also in the best possible ways, I would say, where it's like, if somebody hits you, hit them back, right? It's like, okay. But I'm also like somebody who's not a fighter. I don't like fighting. I don't like it at all. But because of the fact that I wasn't taught how to properly express myself with using my words and vocally speaking up in that way, she wanted us to resort to hands. And that's just not the right way. It just really isn't the right way. It doesn't resolve anything. And honestly, when you truly think about it, words hold more weight than like actual physical violence, I would say. So I feel like when you actually vocalize for yourself, you're learning how to really advocate for yourself. And when I was raised, I was told, like, if somebody hits me, I hit them back, which is like, I get like that's self-defense. Okay, that is self-defense. Like, I guess I would say to my kid, like, yeah, if somebody hits you, you should hit them back. But like at the same time, I think about it now all the time, and I'm like, I don't know. Like, that's just not how I would go about it at the same time. Like, not all of these things that I'm talking about is completely clear to me yet. Like, I'm still on this journey. I'm still figuring things out. But it's just the fact of, like, it doesn't solve anything when we use violence against violence. It does nothing. It ends up being pointless. Like, you're wasting your time. So I feel like my truest answer is, like, if somebody hits you, really the true answer should be, like, go and tell someone of authority. Like, if you're a kid, go and tell an adult, and if they don't handle it, then you really should talk to your parent about it. You should talk to your parent about it regardless. But yeah, my mom was very much so like, if someone hits you or something, or picks on you or something, don't come home crying. You handle that shit, is basically what is how we were raised. Like, it was more so one of those things of like, if you come home crying, you getting your ass beat by me, and I'm gonna give you a real reason to cry. For me, when I was like, especially in middle school and stuff, like, I defended myself a lot vocally, but if people did touch me or did something that I didn't like, I'm not gonna lie, I smacked the shit out of you. I'm not gonna lie. But it came to a point where I was just like, I truly do not like violence. I truly enjoy peace. And I realized that the ways that my mom is trying to put out the idea of retrieving peace was not in the right ways. Like, yes, it's for you to advocate for yourself, but there are better ways to advocate for yourself, is my point. And the ways that she was trying to teach us to advocate for ourselves also was putting us in a position where it's like, we couldn't come home and be vulnerable. We couldn't come home and be sensitive. So it's like, then it brings you to that feeling of like, okay, well, I'm gonna be numb, you know? I'm just gonna be numb to it all. Like, if somebody's picking on me and it's the same crap over and over again, I'm just gonna be numb to it. And it's like, that's not facing your problems. That's you numbing yourself so you don't have feelings anymore. And so that's what I started to learn. I started learning how to be sensitive with myself in my own time, but not truly be able to be vulnerable with the people that I'm closest with. And I also learned how to vocalize. So it's like, I learned good things from it, but I also found a lot of like bad in it that I don't think it worked for me at all. And it didn't matter because I didn't care. Like, if I'm crying, most of the times I'm not coming home crying about anybody picking on me, because I used to handle that shit on my own at school. But it was more so like, I'm crying about however my mom is making me feel, or like, it, you know, if it just comes to a point where it's like you're agitating me and you're not understanding me. That's more where the sensitivity part came out, and it wasn't truly ever respected or gratified that I would come to her and be this way, be vulnerable with her. It was never gratified. It was just like, better suck it up. Because honestly, okay, to give more of an insight, as a child, I think that I probably stopped receiving hugs and kisses and stuff like that from my mom when I was like, maybe 7, I would say, maybe younger than that. So it's like, it was also to the point where it's like, I'm being taught physically how to fight and handle myself in that way as a child, but not physically how to love. And so that becomes really hard. And to give more perspective, like in my adult relationships, it was really hard to get myself to understand that physical touch is a love language and it is okay, and expressing that you love somebody, like just saying I love you, is okay. So those things were really hard. And for me, like, at the same time, excuse me, I have to cough. For me, at the same time, I also was able to have that balance of my mom being the tough love, but my dad being the softer version. But because I lived with my mom full time, and I was with my dad mostly on weekends and stuff, or whenever I wanted to be with him, really, as I got older, not as a child, much more. I missed out on that because I missed out on being able to understand how to be more tender with love, because I lived with my mom more. I didn't think I was going to get emotional recording something like this, but I am. Okay. So I feel like when I, I'm gonna take a second to just breathe. Whew. Sometimes it's like you just have to cry it out. Sometimes you just gotta cry it out. Ain't nothing wrong with that. You know? I have to always tell myself that because, like I said, but it's like I couldn't cry in front of my mom. As soon as I start crying, it's like, stop fucking crying, right? But my point is, because I live with my mom full time and I didn't get to really experience that more tender love for my dad, even though he would try to give it to me all the time, it just got to the point where I was so used to being numb and just choosing to be very cold-hearted because of her, because that was the person, that's a woman, that was a role model in my life, whether I liked it or not, whether I was at an age where it's like I really don't want to look up to her and whatever, and it came to a point where it was like I don't want to look up to her for these things because she's not giving me the proper, attention as a mother that she should be. I missed out on those things with my dad. So, because I missed out on those things with my dad, as I got older, I learned those things. But it sucks at this point. That's why I think I'm crying, because it sucks at this point where it's like, okay, well, I so badly wanted to excuse me. I so badly at this point want to be this extremely loving person because I realize that's truly who I am, that it's like I shunned away one of the most important loves ever. And I'm okay with admitting that. I'm okay with acknowledging what I did. But I also was, subconsciously, I had no idea what I was doing because I was just trying to figure me out and figure myself out. And I was so used to numbing myself. And, like, that whole, like, loving era and me understanding what love is and stuff didn't really come into fruition until my dad passed away when I was 19 or 20. So those things didn't come into fruition until after that, until I got out of deep depression and started like truly digging down deeper and finding myself. Those things didn't like pop out for me. They didn't resonate with me. I always like, people would always tell me like, you're so kind and you're so sweet. And I would just be looking at them like, no the fuck I'm not. I'm not kind or sweet. I'm a fucking bitch. That's how I take it. That's how I felt because that's how I was I felt like I was raised to be. And it's like, just because your parents try to raise you to be a certain way does not mean that that is you. Does not mean that it defines you. Does not mean that is truly who you are or who you're destined to be. So don't ever take that pressure from your parents and think that because they birthed you, because they brought you into this world, because they supported you with shelter and financial needs, does not mean that they get to define who you are. They never do. So I feel like the point of that is to be like, in a sense, I was brainwashed and I thought a certain way that wasn't necessarily who I was. And it took years of me like finding myself and learning to be more gentle with myself and patient and loving with myself that I truly realized that is just not me at all. Like, I don't like it. It's not me. Yeah. And then, it doesn't help with me shunning my dad's love away because it was to the point where it's like, this man would always want to give me hugs and stuff and I'd just be like, I don't want a hug. Or I'll still give him a hug. It wasn't I don't want hugs. It was more like I don't want a kiss. I don't do that. Got to that age where it was like, no, we're not doing that. And then with hugs, it was like, because I didn't get that affection from my mom, who's usually your mother is supposed to be more tender, loving, and nurturing. My mom is completely opposite from that. So if I'm going to hug my dad, it was just very half-assed hugs. Like, I feel the difference in when people hug me now, too. Like, I can tell when people genuinely are giving me a hug versus giving me a half-assed hug. And it's just like, that man felt half-assed hugs for a while. Probably not as a child, because I loved my dad so much that man didn't yell at me about, like, anything when I was growing up. There was one time that he yelled at me, and or like not, he yelled at, he like hit my butt or something. It was the one and only time or something, and then I freaked out. I was like 6 or 7 or something. And then he never did that shit again. But and then I think it was like more of one of those things where it was like, it's a shock because this parent never does this to me, and to see this parent specifically do this to me, I am thrown off. But it was never like, you hurt me or anything like that. It was more of emotionally, I'm in shock. But yeah, it's like the weirdest thing to me. Every time I look at my parents' dynamic, it's like my mom is more like the hard father figure to me, and my dad is more of the soft, tender mother figure to me. But it just makes me realize too, like, there is no gender roles in this. It just depends on you as a person, because you can have the most loving mother that's nurturing, that, you know, makes you feel very loved and is very affectionate, but you could also have the complete opposite. But yeah, so the way I was raised plays a huge part in not who I am, but how I react to certain things. And I had to train myself to not react certain ways, and I'm still training myself to do that. It's so difficult that it's like, it's kind of it is very tiresome. It's tiresome, but I'm aware now, and that's what matters the most. The fact that I'm aware means that I can make change in my life. It means that I can make change to the version of the person that I am currently. But yeah, there's just certain changes that have already been in action and have already been made. And it's just so interesting to me for me to think back about those things and think about how I was raised and the tough love I was given, which truly, honestly, when I think about it, that shit is not love. Like, I understand that my mother loves me and stuff and she wants the best for me, but like the way it comes off, it's not loving. It's not giving, I'm mothering you. It's giving, my parents parented me this way, so this is the only way I know how to do it. So even though you're telling me that I'm making you feel shitty, this is all I know, so I'm just going to keep doing it. And it's like, to a certain extent, it got to the point where it's like, I express these things to her, but it's like, it doesn't matter. Even to this day, in age, like, if I'm expressing to her certain things where it's like, I'm your daughter, you should be able to understand me at this point. I shouldn't have to over explain myself like this, but I am, so that you can understand where I'm coming from. It's still to the point where it's like, she'll understand where I'm coming from, but she's still in denial. Until this day too, like, at certain points, she will accept the fact of how she chose to raise me and parent me, but then there's other times where, like, she's the type of person to throw things back into my face, so then she'll regress and then be in denial again, and then be like, you cry boo-hoo about your childhood, but honestly, you didn't get a horrible, as bad as of an upbringing as your brother. And things like that just anger me. It just pisses me the fuck off. Like, it deadass just, it irks me, because it's like, it's so annoying. And the reason why I find it so annoying is because I feel like I had to parent myself. I literally parent myself. And then I felt like I had to parent my mom specifically. Not so much my dad. Like, me and my dad had a very open relationship where I would tell him, that started was crazy, but I would tell him things, you know? And I didn't have a problem being open and vulnerable with him, because my dad understood that I was sensitive. And I think it's because my dad was also sensitive himself. So it's like, I could be open with him and tell him certain things that he's doing that is bothering me. And I didn't have to be as much as on defense mode as I did or do have to be with my mom. So it just makes it extremely difficult to find a balance, to feel like I can express myself, to feel like what I'm saying to her isn't going in one ear out the other, but most times that's how it usually feels. And like, there's certain changes that I've seen in my mom from when I was a teenager till now, because when I was a teen, that's when I really started to parent her. I really tried to be open with her about my depression, and sometimes, a lot of times, I would regret being open with her about it, because it hurt me more to be open about it, because she took it as, you're crazy, or like I said, like you're crying boo-hoo about your life, but it's like, it's not that. It's about my upbringing. It's about the core values that you're teaching me and how you're teaching them in all the wrong ways. So yeah, I don't know. I didn't like when the way I was raised with my dad too. It's like certain things too, like, would bother me, where it's like you're not being as sensitive as you should be. But like, again, like I said, if I didn't feel like he was being sensitive, I could openly speak to him about it and he'll be receptive to it and he'll care because I'm his kid. And he's gonna be like, oh, okay, that's bothering you? Okay, well, can you help me better understand it? Whereas my mom, she's more stagnant. Like, it's like hitting a brick wall where it's like, you did this to me. And she's like, well, you did this to me. And it's like, well, I'm trying to tell you in the moment, this is why I'm reacting this way or feeling this way, because you're doing this to me. So can we start at how I'm feeling and work through that? And then we can get towards why I'm reacting the way I am and how that is also making you feel. Like, it's invalidating. And it's to the point where it's like those learned behaviors come into me too. And like sometimes I even struggle and I end up invalidating my partner and not realizing it, because it's just subconsciously just like how I've been raised with tough love. And I'm just like, get over it. Like, you'll be fine. And it's like, it's not that. You can't just tell someone to get over it. You'll be fine. It's like, acknowledge their feelings, let them feel how they feel, and help them work through how they feel. It's like, I know those things now, but sometimes it's hard to also still put it in action, even if I'm aware of it. But me being open and vulnerable with my partner allows my partner to also help remind me of these things so that I don't neglect them and make them feel like they're a bother or like they're a burden, or, you know? So me being aware has helped me become more progressive with it. I gotta take a sip of my tea. I'm sure if you're just listening, you probably hate this sound, but I genuinely need it. Like, my throat and everything, like my voice, it sounds horrible. This is probably not a good idea to record while sick like this, but I want to record this. I'm here. I'm ready, baby. I'm ready. All right. So that's kind of like how I was parented. It didn't make me feel good, and it's something I would never. This is never a way that I would ever parent my own kids or parent my stepchildren. Like, I'm more so with the gentle parenting. Like, yeah, there's certain ways that you can put your foot down, but it doesn't have to be in a way where you're yelling at your child or belittling your child or hitting your child. Like, you don't need to do any of those things for your child to understand. Your child should be comprehensive and able to understand things, and if they can't, that means that you need to stop getting aggravated, and you as a parent need to break things down and understand which way your child is going to understand better. Because with my upbringing, that's exactly what it was. It was, my mom, I think, has such a childish mindset, is how I'm gonna put it. She has such a childish mindset that she doesn't know how to react to anything in the proper calm way. That it's just like impulsive reactions where it's like, I'm gonna just call you all sorts of names and I'm gonna make you feel like shit and I'm gonna make you feel small. That is not the way to parent at all. It's not even the way you should treat anybody, regardless of parenting. That is just not how you treat someone you love at all. That shouldn't be how you treat anybody, even if you don't love them to that extent. That's just not how you treat people. And that's just how I feel. And I will never repeat the parenting styles that were put upon me. And that's why I continuously say that, yeah, I'm a product of my environment, but I will never let that define who I am today, because I'm better than that. And I only want to be better than that. I would never want that for my future children. I would never want that for my stepsons. I would never, ever do that. I don't do it now. I would never do it. Now we're getting into more of the breaking the generational curses. And the way I'm doing that is by being more comfortable with my vulnerability and sharing it with others. And how I'm doing that is right here with the podcast. Me talking about my parenting, and still I don't feel like I'm getting as deep into it, because for me, it's a lot. And it's like one of those things that you don't think it's going to emotionally affect you to that extent. And then It does, because it kind of did. It made me cry, and y'all seen that. So it's like, it's a lot to really get into that much for me. So I just feel like, being able, though, to just really give insight into my story and who I am and how I came about, that's what's most important to me. That's me breaking generational curses. And the reason why I say that is because, like I said, my mom was somebody who was very much so like, she silences the situation. She won't talk about she won't talk about what she did wrong or how it's making me feel. Like, she won't sit there and truly be receptive. Even now, even though she's progressed a bit, she's still not going to sit there and take it. She's not going to take it and be like, I did that. And me and my brother have had several conversations with her where it's like, you just need to hear what you did. And then once you hear what you did, just accept that that's how you treated us, accept that's how you raised us, and then just apologize. That's it. And understand, like, why we feel the way we do. Like, just listen. I think the biggest thing is to listen. And it's like, she's not a very good listener. So yeah, you just get to a point where it's like, no more of that. And you just gotta stop it. You just gotta stop the behavior. It gets to a point too for me where it's just like, I can't care anymore. If she's not gonna be willing to change and that's the person that she wants to be, that's the person she wants to be. I'm not here to push someone to do more than they feel they can do. I'm very much so a healer, and that's why I feel like I always end up regaining energy to try again, but it just gets really tiring, and I just can't do it anymore. And it's also like, I realize too that you have to stop caring. It's not I don't know if stop caring is the right terminology, but you have to at some point be like, okay, this is my bandwidth, and I'm setting the boundary that, you know what, if you can't respect me and understand me and try to better yourself so that you can be a part of my life, then you're gonna have to be loved from a distance. Because yes, I'm a healer, but it's extremely draining for me to sit there and keep trying to hone in the same things only for my mom to then just regress and throw things back in my face. And then it makes me feel like, well, then you didn't really truly progress, because it's showing your true feelings, your true thoughts, and it's just like, I'm over it. Like, I'm so over it. And it's to the point where it's like, now the real focus should be me. Because I can, as a child, like, I can understand my parents, their upbringing. I can understand why they may feel the way that they do. I can understand that due to how they were brought up and raised, that's how they choose to parent us. But understanding only goes so far. Understanding is being empathetic with somebody, and that's great and fine, but I should never have to sit here and drain myself. At that point, it's like, now I need to turn my focus to me and work on me. Because even when I'm sitting here and telling y'all about how it's like, the way that I was raised by her greatly affected me, because obviously she's a woman, so that's the person I'm looking up to most. It's to the point where it's like, you've taught me how to numb myself so much that now when I have feelings, it got so difficult to learn how to deal with them. And that is the main reason that I truly feel like I went into deep depression from my teenage years into my early adult years, because I didn't know how to deal with my feelings. I kept sitting there and analyzing them and trying to like push them away, and it only led me down to a darker mindset where it's like, I'm not actually learning how to take myself out of that and uplift myself. And the reason why I can't uplift myself is because my mother never took the time to teach me how to love myself. And, as a father, it only goes so far, and even as a brother, like, it only goes so far to tell your sister, your daughter, like, you're beautiful, like, you're amazing, you're intelligent. But if your child is not truly believing that, and it's also like the woman that she's supposed to look up to is also not like telling her those things or making her feel valid in those ways, then it's extremely hard to start believing those things. It's extremely hard to understand how to gratify yourself. It's extremely hard how to affirm yourself. So I felt like I had to parent myself out of that. I had to teach myself that, like, I am this amazing being. I am this amazing individual. I am strong. I am resilient. Those are things that my mom gave me, yes, but it's okay for me to be gentle and sensitive. It's okay for me to feel the way I feel. It's okay to have feelings. It's definitely okay. And it's definitely amazing and okay to be happy. Because I feel like, due to how, my mom was brought up, it's just like, it just feels very miserable. She feels miserable to me. Like, that's just how it feels to me. Like, if you don't want progression in your life, then you're feeling miserable, because that's how I felt during my depression. But yeah, because I didn't know how to do those things, I had to learn how to do those things for myself. And it was like the most difficult thing I've ever had to learn, and it took years, like I said. So like, when I sit here and I'm telling y'all, like, even in I think it was my pilot or my first episode, like, yeah, got over childhood trauma. No, I didn't. I'm getting through it. I'm still working through it. I don't think like there's ever a time where someone will be fully healed. Like, healing is not a linear process. Like, there are times where you'll feel like you have all this freedom, all this love, all this vulnerability, and you've reached a whole new pinnacle. But like, there's so many other things that like you still have to work on. It just doesn't ever stop there. So my point is that I'm still healing. Sometimes I like 2 years ago, like, I really thought like I reached that point, but other things have like come out in different circumstances, or certain different experiences I've been going through, where it's just like, I'm not fully healed yet. I don't know if I ever will be. But the point is that I'm always working towards greatness. That's the point. The point is that I'm striving for the betterment of this version of myself. That's the point. And I've been, throughout my journey, my spiritual journey, I've understood and got to a point where I've realized how important it is for me to feel my emotions, because I actually, since I'm so sensitive, I used to take it, because of how my mom made it seem, I used to take it as a weakness. It's just come to this point where it's like, I've understood that being sensitive is a power, because it's allowed me to be much more empathetic and understanding towards others. It's allowed me to give people that space to feel safe and heard, and to feel like this is okay. Like, I can be vulnerable, because nobody should really feel like it's an issue to be vulnerable. Nobody should feel like people can't be your safe place, especially people who are supposed to be closest to you, So I think that I've learned a lot, even though like those experiences were hard for me growing up. I learned a lot from them. I learned to do the opposite of what she's taught me, and I've learned how to take certain positives out of the negatives, and that's really what matters most. But yeah, I think it's just the fact that I'm able to do that means a lot to me. It means that I truly am growing as a person. It means that like I'm affirming that it's okay for me to be who I truly am, because I'm not being suppressed anymore. And like, nobody knows what type of freedom that brings me, but I truly felt that freedom when I was 21 and I moved out. Like, I finally moved out, and I was like, it was like this huge weight lifted off my shoulders, and I felt like I had control of my entire world, and I have the control to define who I am and do what I want and feel how I feel without feeling like I can't feel how I feel, And it felt so good, and it still feels just as good. It makes me happy to just even like say it out loud. Like, I don't know how to describe it. It's a sense of like self-love, and it's a sense of like achievement, honestly. It's crazy to me, though. Like, something like that. It's just crazy to me. It's just crazy. But yeah, the reason why it's, to go more into it, like, where I feel like I am breaking generational curses like this, and that's why I start feeling this sense of freedom, because those generational curses have put me in shackles. Like I said, I felt extremely suppressed. And it's to the point where it's like, yeah, like, as I said before, like, yeah, my mom, like, gave me shelter, and, like, I was well fed and all this other stuff. But it's like, I didn't get the tending, loving, things that I deserved. I really didn't. But when I'm talking about breaking generational curses and me feeling like I'm breaking off the shackles off me, it really started when I was able to go to therapy in my early adult life. When I was able to do that around 19, I think, because it was like during the time I started going to therapy right before my father passed away. So when I started doing that, it was crazy. It was like, I don't even know how to describe it. It was like, I finally got to like release everything. Like sitting in front of a therapist, like, and people take therapy in different ways. Some people are like, why are we paying somebody to just sit there and listen to our problems? But for me, it meant the world, because it meant that I could get whatever I had on my chest, on my mind, off of me. And it felt like this person wasn't judging me for it. This person wasn't trying to make me feel like you're being sensitive and you shouldn't be sensitive. It was like this person was listening to me and asking me like, well, how does that make you feel? And then it was like for once, it's not about someone listening, it's about me getting it off. It was about me releasing it. Where it's like, yes, I could have these thoughts flowing through my head forever and ever and ever when I'm going through my depression, right? But it always led to a negative space where I also started to tell myself like, oh my God, like, woe is me? Like, why am I here? I just feel like I'm taking up space. Like, why didn't they just abort me? I didn't need to be here. Da 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 da. It led me to a space of being like, well, understand that your parent was parented the way that they were, but that doesn't define you because of how they chose to parent you as well. So it's like it taught me to be understanding of those things, but it also allowed me to release those things without feeling judged, like I said. But then on top of that, me speaking it out loud, like, allowed me to hear myself, allowed me to hear what I'm going through and truly process it. So that's why sometimes I feel like these podcasts and things will help me, because in a sense, it is a form of therapy for me. And it's so funny because when I was in therapy, I felt like my therapist was like, you got it under control. Because I would come to therapy, she would never tell me to come in, make goals and all these other things. Like, she didn't tell me that. But I came in and I was like, listen, I've been journaling and whatever, and I came in with some goals, and I just want to read them out to you. And I was truly like, yes, I went to therapy to help me, but I was also like, I was truly just having a conversation with myself. I was allowing myself to feel validated and heard. It wasn't about the other person that was listening to me. It was about me releasing and then me hearing it back. That's really what it was for me. And for me, therapy worked. For other people, it doesn't. My mom doesn't like therapy. Like I said, she's a very silenced person. She suppresses herself, and she did that to me and my brother. Where, like, she would also, even when I would mention it as a teen about therapy and stuff, she would make it seem very much so like it was a horrible thing, And she also made me feel as though, like, therapy, if I go into therapy, I'm going to tell lies about her. And that, yeah, like, it was just, again, invalidating, like, my experience. And I realized when I went to therapy, like, that's my story. That is my experience. And that is how I feel. And you're not going to tell me what I should and shouldn't say. You're not going to, what do you call that? You're not going to sit here and literally, what is that word called? What is it? You're not going to sit here and, like, coach me. You're not going to coach me on what I should say to my therapist. Like, I'm going to say what I want to my therapist because I'm going to release it all because I'm tired of holding it in. And I've been holding it in for so long. Nobody knows truly how I feel inside. I don't even know how I feel inside because I don't even know how to feel anymore. So it was just very much so like, no, I'm going to therapy. It got to an age where I was like, girl, you rebel on everything else and tell people you can feel that way if you want to, but this is how I feel and I'm going to do this. So why aren't you just going to therapy and trying it? And then I did. And then the results were freaking amazing. And that's why I'm just like, either my mom also did try to do therapy or something as well, and she tried to see a psychologist, but she clearly didn't use the tools of therapy in the right way, so it didn't work for her. Either that, or she just didn't have the right person that guided her in the right way. For me, it was like, when I went to therapy, I felt like I guided myself. And that is more of an accomplishment for me than it is to just be like, yeah, I went to therapy. No. It's like, I did something for myself, and I actually guided myself through it. It's completely different. But, in this episode, I don't really talk too much about how my father fathered me, but he did father me with love. And if I needed him, he'd be there. It was more so me who chose to be very closed off a lot of the times, and only chose to go to him for certain things, because I didn't feel truly comfortable all the way around to just go to him all the time, because sometimes it was just like, you have girl things, you want to talk to a girl about it. But my mom didn't create that space for me either. And even when she did, she ended up using whatever I told her against me. So it's like I had the opportunity to be more open with my dad, but I didn't always realize that in those moments, because I also didn't want it to go back to her, and then it creates a whole thing, and then I have to hear it later on. And my mom's one of those people who don't shut the fuck up, so she'll just keep going and going and going and going. And when you can't escape an environment like that, it drives you insane. So I had to suppress myself at certain times. But, my dad was there for me when I needed him to be there for me, and I still feel like my dad is there for me when I need him. Sometimes I feel like, you left me real early, but like, for the most part, I talk to my dad. I feel like he is with me through the most toughest times of my life. So I'm okay. That's really what it is. That's really what it is. I'm telling my younger self that you will be okay. You are okay. And you are working through it. Whether you know it or not, you are learning valuable lessons that are going to change your life, that are going to make you a better person, and you're going to achieve amazing things. You're going to achieve small goals, and you're going to achieve huge goals. That's all that matters. And the only reason that you're going to do that is because you truly know yourself. And you're going to be the one who always defines yourself, no one else. So that's really what I have to say to my younger self. But I just feel like I'm at a place at this time in life where it's like, I know who I am at my core, and I know my values. So even if something or someone triggers me, I remind myself of all the love that I've cultivated for me. I remind myself of all the things that I've been through to help me, understand what coping mechanisms helped me push through those things and brought me to this place. I remind myself of where I want to be, where I am now, where I want to be, and where I used to be. And I feel like that's what keeps me balanced. I feel like that's what keeps me going, because I always want betterment for myself. That's just who I am. I'd rather be optimistic than pessimistic. I was in such a toxic environment that it was very much like I became so numb to it and unresponsive to it that now I'm just like, no. You can be responsive to things, but it doesn't have to be this grand reaction. And so me being able to sit here and remind myself of who I am at my core and to know myself, that's what matters to me. That's what makes me feel good. That's what makes me understand that I have to be concerned about myself now, and not so much of where my mom is. If you don't want to work on your childhood trauma, on any type of traumas that you've been through, and you don't want to work through it, that's on you. I have to remember that I have to stop putting that on myself and stop trying to parent a parent who should have known how to parent. But the reality of it is, they didn't know how to parent. Both of them didn't know how to parent. And the reason why I say that is because the way that my father fathered me is completely different than how he fathered my brother. So it's completely different. Both of their circumstances with parenting, I don't agree with. I will never follow in suit with that. I will always want to do better and be better. And I feel like that's reflective even now with the fact that I am a stepmom and how I am with my stepsons, because I'm very open. I like to ask them a lot of questions. And I'm never like, I've realized that, as a kid, when you're being told what to do, but you're not understanding why you're doing something, then you just don't want to do it. And you're just like, I don't want to deal with this. And I feel like that's what gets parents mad. But if you sit there and you explain something to a kid and you're like, I need you to do this, and this is why I need you to do it. When you teach a kid to have understanding, it's adding a real core value for them to be empathetic to others and for them to also learn how to express themselves. So parenting is like a whole another realm, because it's like I don't have my own biological children, but I still apply those values into my stepsons. But we could do a whole separate podcast on that. But for now, I just want y'all to know that I'm at a better space and a place in my life where it's like I feel this like that deep breath out. That's like me releasing. Like I feel like I've released those things. And now I've even had a recent situation with my mom where it's just like I can't even deal with it anymore. Like I can't do it anymore. I've tried and tried and tried, and my family is always like, well, understand I'm tired of understanding where someone's coming from. There's only so much that I can take and understand if someone's not going to be understanding towards me. I can't continuously put myself in that draining position. So me knowing myself at my core and me working on bettering myself, that's what's most important to me. That's all that matters to me. And that's all. That's all. Good day. Good day. Good day, sir. Good day. But yes. So, when we originally started this episode, the concept was, we are a product of our environment, but does that define us? And truly, like I said from the beginning, no, it does not define you. You define yourself. You are the main character in your life. You choose everything that happens. You choose your own destiny. Some people don't believe that, and that's okay. But truly, and when it boils down to it, it's the fact of everything in life is a matter of choice. That's all I'm gonna say. Everything in life is a matter of choice. The most important things to remind yourself always is that you're protected and you're secure in yourself. And to always remind you that you are God and God is you. I am God. God is me. Because you should feel close to yourself. You should feel close to your higher self. And a lot of times we're in these bodies and we distance ourselves from our souls. And then we forget our true purpose here. So that's why I always say everything is done with choice. Everything should be carefully thought out. The path you choose is your choice. But yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed this episode. I know it was a very intense episode. I probably should have started this off with a trigger warning. I probably should. But that's okay. Well, we're taking notes for next time. I'm sorry. But I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope it gave some insight as to how I got to this point, where I used to be versus now where I want to be. And yeah, until next time, thank you for tuning in to Speak Your Truth with NCV, and we'll be back for another episode very soon. Bye.